Hey guys, welcome to the Daily Word Bible Study, a plain and simple, book by book, chapter by chapter, and verse by verse study through the entire Bible. Currently we are in Isaiah chapter 41. One of the things about these prophecies is a revelation that God has given us, a little peek into who He is, the nature of God, the majesty of God. Okay, so with that, let's jump right in. Let's jump into it. Let me do this first too, because this is kind of bothering me. Too bright. Alrighty. Alright, so let's get to it. Isaiah chapter 41. It says, "Be silent before me, islands, and let peoples renew their strength. Let them approach, and let them testify. Let us come together for the trial. Who has stirred him up from the east, and calls righteousness to his feet? The Lord hands nations over to him, and he subdues king." Now he's referring to Babylon. Now keep this in mind. This is over 100 years before the invasion comes. All right. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, Babylon is not even a world dominating power at this time. And so you're going to see that God is prophesying this. Okay. So again, verse 2, he stirred him up from the east. He calls righteousness to his feet. The Lord hands nations over to him, and he subdues king. Now there's another statement here. Notice the sovereignty of God behind the scenes. It is God who hands nations over. There is what is called the God of deists, or deism. And the idea of deism is that God created everything and then kind of went on a vacation, took a nap, went to sleep, whatever, right? And that now things are just kind of transpiring naturally, okay? But nothing can be further from the truth. It is a misrepresentation of God. Now, in saying this, when I say that God is very much in control, that certainly opens another can of then why is all of this going on? To which, as he said in the previous chapter, who has directed the Lord? Who has given him knowledge? One of the things we see, and it's troubling to our theology, and it can be troubling to our psyche, is that God is very much the puppet master and the creator of all what we have going on. So here's a good example. There is no epic struggle between good and evil. Notice, the Lord hands nations over to him. God is directing this. God is very much so in control. So now you may say, well then, why this evil? Well, not so much as the evil as much God's sovereignty to say, this is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to do it. All right. He says, he makes them like dust with the sword, like wind-driven stubble with the bow, meaning a vast army. He pursues them, going on safely, hardly touching the path with his feet. Who has performed and done this? Calling the generations from the beginning. In other words, God speaks from the beginning. He says, I, Yahweh, am the first, and with the last, I am He. In other words, I am the first and the last, as we can see. Now, this is kind of an interesting revelation, because when you read, for example, John 1:1, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. What is interesting about this, if you were to travel back through time, and then you go past your own birth, past the creation of man, past the creation of the earth, then you go into eternity past, and you go past the creation of the universe. what you will run into is God. That's what you would run into. What John then reveals to us is that what you would see is the Word. That's what you would see, the Word. So who has performed and done this, calling the generation from the past, I, Yahweh, am the first, and with the last I am He. The islands see and are afraid. The whole earth trembles. They approach and arrive. Each one helps the other and says to one another, take courage. The craftsman encourages the metalworker. The one who flattens with the hammer supports the one who strikes the anvil, saying to the soldering, it is good. He fastened it with a nail so that it will not fall over. But then he says, but you, Israel, my servant, Jacob, whom I chosen, descendants of Abraham, my friend. Now, I want to make one kind of statement about this, and I'm just kind of inserting this. Anyone who calls themselves a Jew today, so my question will always be, are they the descendants of Abraham? Okay, are they the descendants of Abraham? All right, so anyway, verse 9, I brought you from the ends of the earth and called you from the farthest corners. I said to you, you are my servant. I have chosen you and not rejected you. Now, even though he's going to discipline them severely, notice he says, I have not rejected you. Verse 10, do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be afraid, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will hold on to you with my righteous right hand. Be sure that all who are enraged against you will be ashamed and disgraced. Those who contend with you will become as nothing and will perish. So again, this is sort of a future prophecy, because Nebuchadnezzar will certainly destroy the nation of Israel, the city of Jerusalem, the temple. Okay? Verse 12, you will look for those who contend with you, but you will not find them. Those who war against you will become absolutely nothing. Excuse me. For I, Yahweh your God, hold your right hand and say to you, do not fear, I will help you. So again, when will this take place? Certainly in the future. Currently, as they were speaking these words, Israel was very much in sin and falling under judgment with God. Verse 14, do not fear, you worm, Jacob, you men, Israel, I will help you. This is the Lord's declaration. Your Redeemer is the Holy One of Israel. See, I will make you into a sharp threshing board, new with many teeth. You will thresh mountains and pulverize them, and make hills into chaff. You will winnow them, and a wind will carry them away. A gale will scatter them, but you will rejoice in the Lord. You will boast in the Holy One of Israel. Now again, this is yet future. 17. The poor and the needy seek water, but there is none. Their tongues are parched with thirst. I, Yahweh, will answer them. I, the God of Israel, will not forsake them. I will open rivers on the barren heights and spring in the middle of the plains. I will turn deserts into a pool of water and dry land into a spring of water. I will plant cedars in the desert, acacias, myrtles, and olive trees. I will put juniper trees in the desert, elm and cypress trees together, so that all may see and know and consider and understand that the hand of the Lord has done this. The Holy One of Israel has created this. So again, I think that this is referring to the millennial reign when all this will happen. From that time, which was, remember, about 800 years before Christ, Until the present day, Israel has been in turmoil in their relationship with God. So this is going to actually not come to fruition until the 1,000-year millennial reign of Jesus, 1,000 years. Verse 21, it says, submit your case, says the Lord. Present your arguments, says Jacob's king. Let them come and tell us what will happen. Tell us past events so that we may reflect on them and know the outcome, or tell us the future. Now, he's kind of telling them something that they can't do. Right? In other words, tell me the future right now. But notice he says now, let them come though. God is not intimidated by man's arguments, man's accusations, right? Man's insults. Okay, he's not intimidated by that. He says, sure, let them come. Verse 23. Tell us the coming events, then we will know that ye are gods. Indeed, do something good or bad, then we will be in awe and perceive. I'm going to come back to this in a moment. Let me finish this chapter out. Look, you are nothing, and your work is worthless. Anyone who chooses you is detestable. Talking about these pagan idols. I have raised up one from the north, and he has come, one from the east, who invokes my name. He will march over rulers as if they were mud, like a potter who treads the clay. Now, if you read Daniel chapter 2, God gives Nebuchadnezzar a dream that he could not figure out. He called this magicians, in which Daniel was one of them, but Daniel wasn't present at the time. He tells them, give me the interpretation. They could not. And he said, okay, you know what? You guys are full of it. And he orders their execution. Daniel comes and gives him the interpretation of the dream. One of the interpretations is that God says, the image, the vision was a human form. And the interpretation was that this human form was comprised of 4 world-dominating kingdoms. And of the 4 dominating kingdoms, Nebuchadnezzar was the head of gold, and it says, you are the greatest of these kingdoms. And said, and God has given you that. So when I say this, in verse 25, it says, I have raised up one from the north, and he has come, one from the east, who invokes my name. And eventually, Nebuchadnezzar did come to the Lord, and he kind of makes Babylon sort of the, he simply puts God as sort of the head of the nation. They didn't necessarily do it in their actions, but from Nebuchadnezzar's standpoint, he certainly invoked the name of the Lord. He said he will march over rulers as if they were mud, like a potter who treads the clay. Now, he says, verse 26, who told about this from the beginning, so that we might know, and from times past, so that we might say he is right. No one announces it, no one told it, no one heard your words. I was first to say to Zion, look, here they are. And I gave the herald of good news to Jerusalem. When I look, there is no one. There is no counselor among them. When I ask them, they have nothing to say. Look, all of them are a delusions. Their works are non-existence. Their images are wind and emptiness. Again, so he sort of really slams the idolatrous practices. I want to go back to verse 23, and I want to kind of, again, re-emphasize something. He says, tell us the coming events, then we will know that you are gods. Indeed, do something good or bad. Now he's talking to kind of the created idol statues, right? He says, do something good or bad, then we will be in awe and perceive. Then he said, of course, he said, look, you are nothing, and your work is worthless. Now, what I want to look at this statement here, then he says, tell us coming event. Tell us the coming event. He says, and then we will know you are God. One of the things of prophecy, the living God has given us prophecy. And some people really, really try to diminish the fact that God speaks from the beginning, right? And then tells the future. So, for example, if you kind of go back, you go all the way back to even when Adam sinned, there was a prophecy about, one, how the world would go, and then the coming one, Jesus, to come. All the way back to, the whole incident in Genesis chapter 3. He tells Noah, he tells Noah that the flood was coming at least 120 years before. Okay? He tells Abraham of the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. He tells Moses about the Israelites. He says, look, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to plague Egypt. It's going to be a little rough time, but after that, they're going to let you go. He also tells the prophecy, I think it's Joseph, that gives the prophecy that Israel will be a slave for 400 years. In other words, he's telling this beforehand. In other words, so Moses, the events of Moses was told more than 400 years before his birth. And of course, the many prophecies of Jesus being born here in this very book itself. Now, as I said, that should not be diminished. That should not be just kind of like blown off. Because one of the problems, of course, when we have our Bibles, when we have our Bibles, when we look at our Bibles, we see this is the Bible here, right? This is the Bible. And it is a collection of 66 books written over a 1,500 year period of time. Now, the reason why I say that is because because of our modern technology with the printing press, we can collect these books together, and we don't see that they are books that were written in different time frames. So, for example, when we get to the book of Daniel, right? In Daniel chapter 9, it's going to tell us that he was reading the prophecies of Jeremiah that was like 70 years before him. Jeremiah, the Lord gave Jeremiah a prophecy that Nebuchadnezzar would conquer Israel, that exile would happen. He would take Israel out. That exile would last 70 years. So my point is, with prophecy, and it's important because this what sets God apart. We know here with the book of Isaiah that the writings of Isaiah were over 120, about 120 years before the Babylonian captivity. That's important. So when we get to Jeremiah, understand that you're talking about a 100-year period difference between Isaiah and Jeremiah. So now what he's prophesying here, keep this in mind, it's extremely important that the prophecies of Jeremiah, okay, and all prophecies are timely, that all the prophecies you can chart. Not only can you put yourself in a time frame, but you can see they are spoken in advance, and that's extremely important. This is what God is going to tell us, that he speaks the end from the beginning. And so even though we believe the claims of Scripture by faith, we also have Again, like we can look at and say, look at the evidence for our faith that God spoke. For example, as we're reading Isaiah, 120 years before this king from the east is going to come and conquer Israel. All right, guys. We'll pick it up in the next study. Don't forget to like and share this video and subscribe to BP the Bible Perspective. And as always, if you have a thought or comment, add it to the comment section below. All comments are welcome. I'll see you in the next study.